This is, you know, if you're thinking about this, we have graduation at Bud Walton Arena. This is the largest facility on the entire Springdale campus, and there are nearly 2,000 of us here today. Pretty amazing as we welcome you back to what Dr. Rollins always says is going to be the greatest year in the history of the Springdale School District. If you're new here, we're glad to have you. If you're a veteran here, we're glad to have you. This is the only time during the course of the year where we have all of you together in one spot. So give yourself a hand for being all together at one time. We are ready to start with the presentation of our colors. If you'll stand, please, as the Springdale High School FFA presents the colors. And now please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we have representatives from just about every building in our district, and they are going to sing our national anthem.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the superintendent's choir. Recognize them one more time. They were just beautiful, weren't they? Great, just great. I know you've had a good week. I expect yesterday was very special to each of you. I'd like to do what was modeled so well by our mayor yesterday and then was picked up by other presenters. Let's take just a moment, and think about all of the great teachers that helped you get to this place. Will you do that for me for just a moment? I understand if it's a long list. It certainly is with me. And I would tell you, and I've shared this with this staff many times before, I have spent a lifetime trying to thank those great teachers who said to me, quite a lot really, Jim, you ought to try this again. They wanted my best. They wouldn't accept my second best. And when I tried to get them to, they said what? They said what? You ought to try this again. I know you can do better. I want you to do better. And so that's been a part of my fabric since I set where our 23,000 kids are going to sit on Monday. Horace Mann once said, the public school is America's greatest invention. I believe that's truer today than ever before. Do you believe that? Let's hear with your applause. Ours is the greatest profession. We train them all. Krista McAuliffe once said, we influence generations, we teach. I hope it's with that spirit and really that commitment that we set here today. 23,000 kids, that's a lot of opportunity, any way you look at it. And they will be beautiful, and I know we're ready. We've spent days and weeks and months and so forth and careers trying to get ready for those kids. I said to you yesterday, and I cited some really good examples of why I believe this past school year was the best in the history of the Springdale School District. And I also said, I know you've continued to learn, you've continued to get better. We've added 150 new teachers to this already phenomenal staff. And they will make us better. And you will invite them in and make sure they're comfortable and prepared to contribute from day one. And you'll build on the great systems that we've put in place over time. And there is no doubt in my mind that the 2018-19 school year will be even better than last year. And as I say that to you, that means the year that we are about to enter into will be the best year ever in the history of the Springdale school system. I believe in each of you, and I know that you will make that happen. Give yourself an applause one more time. I've also said to you so often, and I've tried to recognize the importance of the school board to this team. And I know you know that. You know our school board members personally. You interact with them as they visit in the schools and as they ask questions and try to learn more about the great work that you do all the time. We have a phenomenal school board. And I want to introduce our school board, and then I'm going to invite our school board president to come up and join me. And then all of us, after hearing our school board president's welcoming remarks, we're going to share in a very special recognition. So I'm going to ask my board members to stand. I'm going to start with my vice president, Ms. Michelle Cook. Michelle, will you stand? Please recognize her. Will you do that for me? What a beautiful lady. She's just so committed to every child, so committed to support each of you. Michelle, thank you for all you do. I want to recognize, Michelle's our vice president of our board this year. Mr. Randy Hutchinson is our secretary-treasurer. Randy, will you please stand? He's just Springdale through and through. And what a beautiful experience it's been to work with him over time. Randy, thank you. A new member of our board, Ms. Debbie Creek. Debbie, are you here this morning? There she is. Will you please welcome her? What a great job she did yesterday, just sharing really her personal story in so many ways. Debbie, we look forward to working with you as well. Up here, I don't get to see everybody. Is Mr. Dotson here? Danny may join us. He surprises us from time to time. a great school board member who served 2 terms on our board, just been a phenomenal contributor over time. I see Mr. Nick Emerson is here. I'm so proud of Nick. Will you please stand? If you don't know Nick yet, please do. He's just a member of the Springdale family. Great kids, wife teaches the school system. Cynthia is a great member of our team, as is Roger. This is a Springdale guy, and believe me, he's a supporter of Springdale teachers every step of the way. Thank you, Nick. And I know that Mr. Luttrell had to be out of town today, but if you will, please recognize these school board members for me. And now, if you will, and I'll just be brief in my comments, but I want to invite the president of our board to come forward. Mr. Owenby is so focused in terms of wanting our school system to get better and better and better. He's probably the greatest advocate our teachers could ever have. He's always interested in what will help our teachers, what will help them take care of each of our kids. With your applause, welcome Mr. Kevin Owenby, our school board president.
Thank you. Well, this is pretty awe-inspiring. I'll have to tell you, this is the biggest crowd probably that I've stood in front of. Quite larger than most of our board meetings, but however, some of our board meetings are pretty large as well. So good morning, everyone. On behalf of the board, we want to welcome you back for another great year. I want to personally thank you for serving another year in what I believe is the best school district in the state. You know, before I was elected to the school board, I really didn't think much about what you do really is, what you really do. I mean, teaching was my wife's job. It was a second income, and I always had to help in May and in August, taking down a classroom and setting up a classroom. But wow, what I've learned in the last 7 years being a board member. The job you do and how well you do it impacts everything around you. The students you serve, the families you serve, the communities you serve, and ultimately what's going to happen in the future. Our schools truly represent what our community is. Springdale is a great city with excellent schools and a bright future. And I believe that's a direct reflection of the job that you do every day. The Springdale School Board and I am honored to serve with you in this great place we call home. I'm going to leave you with a few words from a really great book. From the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 7. If your gift is serving, serve them well. If your gift is teaching, teach them well. God bless and have a great school year. So we have a very special guest here today, one who I was honored to serve with for 7 years on the school board, and it's Kathy McFetridge. She spent 26 years on the school board and was a complete 100% advocate for kids in Springdale and the teachers and the staff in Springdale. And I'm going to ask Kathy to come to the stage. We're going to give her a special recognition today. So Kathy has been a great mentor, a great leader, a great advocate for the schools. She has helped me tremendously understand really what a servant leader is. I'm going to read a prepared statement here for you, Kathy, and we're so proud of your service to Springdale schools. Kathy, you have served our school district as a parent, a leader of our PTAs, as a founding board member of the Springdale Education Foundation, as a board member of the Arkansas School Boards Association, and as we've said, a 26-year member of the Springdale School Board. You have made a tremendous difference for good. You have influenced all of us. You have made each of us better and the Springdale School District as a whole better. And you have made the lives of thousands and thousands of Springdale students better through your service to the Springdale schools. Today, we want to thank you and commemorate your service in a very special way. We are aware of your special partnership with the staff of Elmdale Elementary School and your work at that school as a parent, a PTA leader, a volunteer supporting students and the staff over time. It is our thought as a school board and the staff that placing your name on Elmdale Elementary School's new media center So it's our thought that it would be a meaningful and appropriate way to thank you for your dedicated service to that school and the Springdale School District. Ms. McFetridge, it is the wish of the Springdale School Board to name the new facility at Elmdale Elementary School the Kathy McFetridge Learning Center.
That's awesome.
So we have a little short video we're going to show. It's going to be a representative sample of some past board members, some present board members, and some of the staff. So we'll stand over here.
Kathy, I'm so proud that this school, Elmdale Elementary, that you care so much about, now has your name associated with the Learning Center, the Library Media Center, the heart of the school, where kids can come and be innovative and creative. That speaks so highly of who you are and what you care about.
Kathy never says no. I don't even think it's in her vocabulary.
Her journey into this all began at Elmdale Elementary. She basically got started in their PTA program and just kind of hit the ground running.
She not only advocated for her kids at Elmdale, but she also advocated for all the kids at Elmdale.
Her work at Elmdale helped raise funds for our program to feed kids on weekends. It helped to buy supplies for kids.
She advocated with our PTA, and we got our gym built, and we were one of the first gyms in the district.
Elmdale built their first gym, but then she helped organize the others, and then the school district then built gyms at all the other schools.
And even today, Kathy's legacy continues at Elmdale, where she helps lead our K kids.
She has really helped us improve K kids. She has also been there for us whenever we're doing a community service project. She gives us ways to improve or get more people involved.
I don't believe our governor could have made a better choice than to choose you to serve on our State Board of Education.
Kathy, I want to congratulate you on a job well done. Your service to this community and the Springdale Public Schools has been exemplary.
Could not have been a better appointment that our governor has made, and I just wish you the very best for you and your entire family. It's been a pleasure and honor to serve with you.
I'm excited about the way that you're going to serve the students of the state of Arkansas. I know that we are now in great hands.
I wouldn't be the educator I am today if it weren't for your examples of leadership and the great things you've done for the students in this city.
Kathy, thank you for your service to this community, to this district, and to this school, and to myself.
We would like to thank you, Ms. McFetridge, for making us help the community, for being involved, and for encouraging us. From behalf of all the K kids, thank you.
Kathy, I'm so proud of you. I'm so honored that I had the opportunity to learn this job with you. You have been a great role model to me and many others that have served on the board. We will miss you, but you are at a great place, and you will continue to do great things for all the students of Arkansas. So thank you very much. I appreciate you.
I know that you'll continue your excellent work in doing what's best for the students of not only Springdale now, but for the state of Arkansas. And it's a great privilege for Springdale to get to share you now with the rest of the state. Congratulations.
Thank you, Kathy.
Let me say something else before I do it. I'm going to say something else. So I've kind of calmed down now. Kathy, I forgot to say that Kathy's been appointed by the governor to serve on the State School Board of Education. So she's not leaving us. She's further going to be able to advocate for public schools and the Springdale Public Schools. So Kathy, if you'd like to say something.
This day is all about you, and what a tremendous surprise, Dr. Rollins. I can't believe that you've done this, because you have touched my heart more than you'll ever know. I love this district. 26 years, I cannot believe it's been 26 years, except when I look at my boys, and I know they're a little older. Of course, I'm not. But sitting on the state board, I've already had 2 meetings. And yesterday, when I sat there and they recognized a Springdale teacher, Amy Sandy, are you here this morning? What an honor to be able to recognize her. And as I sat there, I thought, I know there'll be many, many more of you that come before the state board to be recognized. I am so honored to be a part of this district. And I thank you from the deepest part of my heart for all that you do. You touch our children every day. And I hear the stories, and I know our students come with many, many challenges, and you continue to work hard every day to make sure they're a success. And what a wonderful experience that you get to do what you love. And I have loved every moment on this school board. And Dr. Rollins always says, if you keep your focus on the children, you give it your best every day, that you're kind to one another, everything else will fall into place. And there's no greater truth than that. So thank you all so much. This means so much to me and my family. Bill is here today, Tom is here, 2 of my grandsons, Grady and Logan, and Mandy McFetridge, who teaches at Smith. I know this means a lot to all of us. Thank you again.
We'll only have 45 minutes left to get finished, but I'm going to actually turn it back over to Dr. Rollins. Thank you.
Do you have your teachers in mind? I hope you do. You have a great group of teachers around you. I see the culture that exists in this great school district every day. And I want you to think to yourself, how can I contribute to that great culture that is dedicated to teach them all from day one? Will you think about that with me? The Springdale School District is a phenomenal place. And we're so very privileged to be able to serve here each and every day. In just a few minutes, I'm going to put an illustration in front of you. Many of you have seen before. But as I give some set to that, I want you to think about team to begin with. Team, 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 team. I want you to think about the district team and your school team. And then your classroom team, and your engagement with moms and dads and business community, etc. I want you to think about team. And if I miss someone, I apologize for that. But I'd like to start with our central office team and ask my assistant superintendents to please stand. Will y'all do that for me, and then recognize them for their partnership every day. Guys, stand up. Girls, stand up. Kendra? Thank you. They're a very special group. Each of them at the head of their class, the top of their field. And we're so honored to have them work with us in this great school system. If you're a principal in the school district, will you please stand? They just don't come any better. That's just all there is to it. And we know that what happens at the building level, and what happens at the classroom level, and then what happens teacher to student, and how we involve moms and dads and community and all that. But the great leadership at the building level in this school system is what's made us great over time. If you're a returning teacher in this school system, and I'll save our new teachers to the last. If you're a returning teacher, would you please stand and let us thank you? I want you to look around you. I want you to give each other that smile I always ask for. And I want you to tell your peers how proud you are to have them serving with you. Okay. I wasn't sure we'd get everybody in here today, but we have. We absolutely have. If you're a new teacher, a new member of our team, please stand and let us thank you. It takes each of us, every one of us, almost 3,000 employees in the school district serving the children of the Springdale school system. I know we've got members of our support staff here. If you're a support staff member, please stand and let's all thank them. Will you do that for me? Now I want to thank each of you for choosing to serve in the Springdale school system. You know, if you're like me, and I know you are, I want to serve where I'm needed. I know you feel the same way, and we all know that the children of the Springdale school system need each of us doing our best work every day. Let's recognize that, and again, the fact that we chose to serve here. A few months ago, I began using, as I was thinking about today, and as I was thinking about trying to help just a little bit set the stage, not just for a great school year, but we have today one of the great educational leaders in the country here to speak to each of you and to help us set the stage, to help us open the school year. Dr. Heidi Hayes Jacobs is here. She'll be up here in just a minute. Welcome her with your applause. Will you do that for me? The term I was using at the time was transition. It just, I don't know, it was in my mind, it seemed right. But Dr. Morledge, as she always does, said, you know, we've been talking. We think the better term is transformation. We're involved in the transformation of a school system. And we've been involved in the transformation of a school system over time. And again, I'm going to show you an illustration in just a moment that from my point of view, and I hope yours, tells the Springdale story in a poignant, special, riveting way, really, if you think through it all. And I'm going to go back to the early 80s for just a moment. I'm not going to go all the way back to antiquated, but I am going to get back to classical, and I am going to try to set the stage for contemporary. But we're in a transformational period, and we have to be in a transformational period because I think we would all agree we serve a different type learner than we did yesterday. Do you agree with that? If you agree with that, let me hear your applause. Not quite as loud, I understand that, because we're all trying to sort through our understanding of what that might mean. I referenced this yesterday, I'm going to reference it again today, because to me, it speaks to who you are as well as any illustration I could give. As I stood in front of you last year, I asked, who in this room thinks we have to get better? If you believe we have to get better, please stand. I personally I'm glad y'all enjoyed that because you're not going to get another chance. I'll keep you. From my point of view, and I really don't talk about my point of view very often, but I just want you to know I could never be prouder of you than what you just demonstrated. Knowing that we want to improve, knowing we want to find ways to better connect with our kids, knowing that we want to find ways to better engage our students in the learning, sets the stage for the great things that each of you will do in your classroom every day. I talked to you yesterday about application of learning. I really want to encourage you as you plan for the new year, don't plan for the class, plan for the student. We're beginning a transformational period where we are going to put scaffolding, if you will, as a team, all of us working together behind helping each and every child we serve reach their true potential as a learner. When we do that, everything I ever needed to know, I learned where? You remember that poignant line, teacher, will you help Mommy and me create a great future? For me, student talking to her teacher. That works for me. That's what makes this the greatest profession in the world. We train all professions. And the great thing about the public school is that we take all kids. All kids. We don't pick and choose. We take them all. And I'll say it again, and I'll say it with utmost humility, but utmost commitment. We don't build walls. We teach them all. That's what we do. 23,000 kids who need us. They need us to do our best as a teacher, as their teacher, as a team member. The PLC model is in place. I think it's deep in the school system. I think it will get even better as we really begin to talk about what works and what doesn't work in every classroom every day. And as we move the agenda from the seat time model to the competency-based model, we are finding over and over and over again that our kids engage, they give a better effort, they perform at a higher level. That's the trend that that's the pathway that we're all working down. Yesterday, with our secondary meeting, I invited our teachers from the Don Tyson School of Innovation to stand. I'm going to ask them to do that again today. They are our peers. They're our friends. They're one of us. They are learning. We will learn with them. Let me see the SOI one more time. This is the 5th year of that great school, and we'll have graduates this year. We started with the 8th grade. Moms and dads couldn't wait until we really worked through that model, and they wanted their 7th graders included, so we have done that. And this year, parents wanted their 6th grade students involved. We'd planned, as we open the school year, to have about 1,000 kids. We'll have over 1,200. I tell you that to let you know the win that is in it for every person in this room. The more and more we can build relationships with each student and their families, and personalized learning, and genuinely help each and every child realize their true potential and promise, the more people from our district, from our region, who will want to learn and share this model. Will you recognize that work? It is just phenomenal, and I want you to be learners about it. This past year alone, we had 84 teams from around our state, from adjoining states, who used the curriculum that the teachers on special assignment in the Springdale School District had written to help us pursue the personalization and innovation in teaching and learning in our district. Hundreds of thousands of kids, as a part of that group, are benefiting from the work of the teachers on special assignment, the principals, the central office team, all of those who've helped be a part of that. It has always been our work to stretch and to find new ways. We were never afraid to reorganize our schools and to try something different. If it had hope, if it provided hope to better serve our children. I want to compliment our school board one more time in as great a way as I know how. And I'll go back to talk about teachers who influenced this for just a moment. But we took this idea to our school board about 6 years ago. I wasn't at all sure how it would be received because we were just learners. We had some experiences with leaders around the country. It really seemed to gel with the great work that the Springdale teachers had prepared for, and we were ready for the next step. And so we asked the board if they could support the idea of creating a new school dedicated to personalized learning, one that could be a lab school, one that could provide suggestions and share their perspective and collaborate with our team as a whole, so that over time, every student, every school in the Springdale School District would have a better opportunity to really gain the most from their public school experience in terms of acquiring a personalized learning environment. They really had one question. Jim, will it serve our kids better we really believe that that is at the heart of what this new approach will do? And I said, yes. They said, let's get it done. That's the kind of board that we work for. Recognize them with you because they stand with us every day. I've introduced Dr. Jacobs already. In the early 80s, Dr. Larry Lizotte was the keynote speaker for this back-to-school experience. Dr. Lizotte is a senior educator now. I had the privilege, the central office team over the years had the privilege to work with him through the Superintendent's Institute of America, one of the great educators of our time. Dr. Lizotte coined the phrase, teach them all. All means all, which we have adopted, which has been our foundation piece now for the last 36 years. It has to start there. It has to challenge us in such a way that we're willing to decide for ourselves, what are we willing to do different in order to better engage each and every child? Dr. Ted Sizer, with a coalition of essential schools, more is less, horses compromise, use your mind well. All of those great ideas that led to creative thinking and problem solving, which we see at the center of today's work. Dr. Sizer was here, talking with our team, helping us all at least understand his perspective, and if it worked for us, to borrow from it. Dr. Gene Bottoms with the High Schools at Work initiative. Let me see your hands if you know Dr. Bottoms' name. Do you know his name? Raise your hand, real high. Wave it, let me see it. There you go. Dr. Bottoms is probably in his late 80s today, certainly a senior educator as well. I get calls from him about, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a year. I spoke with him within the last weeks. Application, application, application. The schools of this district have benefited as much from Dr. Bottoms perhaps as anyone who's ever been a part of the system. And at the heart of the work today is, again, what I'm trying to emphasize with you. Phil Slechte, working on the work. Does that ring a bell? Authentic engagement in the learning was first shared with me in a setting in Chicago. We were just sitting together talking, and he said, Jim, I'm doing this great study. He said, the real key to our work is really having good information, good perspective in terms of the level of engagement that our young people have in what's happening. That sends us enormous messages. Our approach, the approach that we're using, is connecting the kids to the learning, or it isn't. So he talked about authentic, active engagement. He talked about passive engagement. Gave a whole series of definitions for different levels of involvement of our kids. We understand those things today, and my hope and my encouragement is that as youth plan, look for that level of engagement. If all the kids are engaged, that's a real plus, without question. Let's come forward to one of Lizotte's students, if you will. Mike Smoker, does that ring a bell? Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands if you're familiar with Smoker's work. I had an opportunity to sit in a room with Smoker a year ago, and Smoker's a student of Lizotte. So when you talk about teach them all, and build on that essential schools piece that Dr. Lizotte put in place, Smoker picked that up. But Smoker really emphasized simplicity and clarity in our work so that kids know absolutely what the intended learning for the day is. And then he goes through all those steps that we're all very familiar with. Anticipatory step, really great modeling, moving kids along the line toward them being an independent learner. Those people have all been our teachers. They've contributed. And as usual, I can go on way too long, but so I'll try not to do that. Let me just move quickly to this point. Doug Reeves, yes? Has he been our teacher? Let me see your hands. Doug Fisher, has Doug Fisher? Real high. Look across the room. We worked with Doug Fisher and his group for 3 years. And we did that because at that point in time, we were having great waves of immigrant families moving to our district, and we had to be learners. And just as I talked to you earlier about my personal pride in each of you, because you know we have to get better. As kids were sitting in front of us from different backgrounds, you know, in the early 80s, when I arrived in Springdale, we were virtually an all-white school system. Our community has changed. Families have moved here from all over the world. The beautiful thing about each of you that I would just want to say thank you for. It doesn't make a bit of difference to a member of the Springdale educational team whether a child comes to us from across the street or across the ocean. When they get to our schoolhouse door, they're one thing. They're our kids. You have made it that way. I'm all the way up to Gracias. You need to laugh at that one, or frown. I haven't made all that much progress understanding different languages. There's a problem with that. That's a real learning need for me. We have 46 languages spoken in our school district today, 46. What I do know is that each of those children is vitally important to each of us. And we will find the way. It may be our smile. It may be putting our arm around that mom and dad and letting them know that we're here for you, and we will find a way to educate your child. The Springdale school staff will do that, and I know that. And I want to tell you, the world knows that too. So again, thank you. I commend you and I appreciate you. We spent 3 years with Doug Fisher. We went back to school. Many of you got your endorsements. You continue to learn today. Almost half of the teachers in this room today have their ESL endorsement. That is a great step forward. Now let's all go get our endorsement, okay? Let's do that. I'll conclude pretty quickly, but I do, and I think you would have me, say thank you to Jim Collins. Jim Collins. What did he tell us? Good is the enemy of great. Great by choice. Red book, blue book, we've got it, we've read it, we've done PLCs about it, we're learning about it. What Collins taught me as much as anything was the need to plan. And I share this with our school board all the time. Whatever the issue of the day might be, you need a plan A, and you need to try to implement that with your entire being. But you also need a plan B, C, and D. Collins talked about that as productive paranoia. I know there's going to be rough days. I know we're going to try some things that don't work. And when we don't have the plan that works on that day, we need a backup plan, B, C, and D. Now, I share that with you because all of us need to be thinking that way. This is, without question, an age of change like we've never dealt with before. We have to have the best plan that we can possibly bring forward, and on some days, that plan won't work either. So we need other options to try. Productive paranoia, very important perspective. On the growth piece, we had about, I don't know, let's say 6,000 kids in 1980 in the school system. Today we have 23,000 kids. We've built 22 new schools during this period of time to accommodate that growth. Phase 2 of the SOI is on the drawing board. We have a new elementary that will open in 2020 as well. We have to constantly look down the road. As Governor Huckabee said, look as far around the next curve as you can. That applies to every one of us every day in order to prepare for a changing future. So those things are important. In the last few years, we've had representatives from the Center for Secondary School Reform that have been genuine partners with us. Has Don Savitsky been in your buildings and sat with you and real high? Dr. Savitsky was here as a part of the Race to the Top grant. The only school district in Arkansas to ever win a Race to the Top grant. Dr. Marcia Jones did a beautiful job leading our staff, leading our team to do what? If Dr. Jones was speaking to you today, she would say, hey, I just took the work of our great teachers, our great principals, the partnerships that are in place with the community, and I tried to organize that into an application that we forwarded to the U.S. Department of Education. I think most of you know the first year we tried that, and there was 2 phases. At the end of the first phase of evaluation, Springdale was in the top 5. But there were questions about sustainability and financing and so on and so forth. And in the end, we didn't qualify that first year. That didn't discourage anyone on this team. We learned from that experience. We identified the gaps. We came back and defined your work better, and we applied the second time. There were 212 applications approved for the National Race to the Top grant that brought this school district almost $26 million that allowed us to do just what you did when you received your incentive money from the state this past year. We looked for ways to reinvest those funds to help our students, our teachers, our principals, our partnerships grow and be better in the future. Out of that 212 applicants the second year, Springdale was where? Number 1 in the nation. Staff, those things don't just happen. Great people make those things happen. You did that. Do you understand that? You gave us the foundation. You gave us the substance. Your work was what was illustrated that brought those funds to our district. Today, we're a one-to-one technology district. There's so many other attributes that are part of that great investment that will help and continue to launch the great work in the school system. That's what great teams do. My encouragement to you is to be encouraged, to feel good about the great work that you have done to date. But there's something very special about the Springdale team. There's that uneasiness. There's that relentless restlessness. Not because we're not good enough. That's not the point. The point is what you illustrated when you stood earlier. We can be better. This is our opportunity to be better in the year ahead. Yes? I want to close my remarks with this illustration. Paul, will you put the staircase up? I know where you're sitting, you probably can't all see it. Somewhere, sometime, I begin to think of a growth model. I begin to think about the work that we're doing at the time and the work that we had done in prior years, et cetera. And so the staircase seemed easy. And I just coined the term Springdale Staircase to Educational Excellence. That foundation landing is again coming back to what Dr. Lizotte taught us so many years ago. Teach them all. All means all, every one of them. I do this all the time. Put your hands above your head. This is exercise stretch. Everybody do it? Come on. Y'all sure look funny. Okay. No, keep your hands up. Y'all get I would do it, but this is so funny. We were with a group of area superintendents, and We were talking about a very serious point of view. We were talking about school safety. And what I did is use that example. That's the culture of our schools. That's the culture of our schools. And we're going to have kids on the first day who are going to stand outside that circle. We got to go get them. We got to go get them. We've got to put our arms around them, let them know that we care about them, and let them know what the win is for them coming to school and giving their best effort. What the win is. Teach them all, 23,000 kids. We want to serve every one of them. I want you to think about that. The Teaching Act is really important. That's what we train to do. That's what we continue to learn how to do. That's what Dr. Jacobs is going to talk with us about today in terms of looking at things that will help us grow and stretch and serve our kids better. The real issue is, did they get it? Learning for all is what we're really about. So that brings so many different dimensions to our conversation. And you're getting better and better and better at doing that. You see the performance data on all scores. Yes, we look at the state data, but you've got your own formative assessments that come to the table every day and can guide and will guide your adjustment in teaching and learning. Learning together. I just painted the picture of families moving to Springdale from all over the world. And I want to tell you, that is not over. I was on the phone this week with the Marshallese consulate sitting in my office, and we were talking with families and leaders in the Marshall Islands, and then in Hawaii. The families are coming to Springdale, Arkansas. They're coming to Springdale, Arkansas because they know that their kids are important and that we will teach them at the highest possible level. The growth will stay in front of us. That's what makes this community vibrant and gives hope and potential. We're not withering away. This is a dynamic community that deserves the very best school system that we can give them, and this team is doing that every day. So learning together, finding ways to engage moms and dads in the learning process. When you have that kind of infusion, and today we have 10,000 of our children are ELLs, 10,000. We worked with Sharon Darling, another great educator in the family literacy centers in this country, Dr. Bridgeforth, her team, everybody in this room, to really make learning together a really big deal. Working with the Marshallese population has been a challenge for us, and it will continue to be. But we're making enormous progress. A few years ago, we might have one or two family members who would come in and sit down and talk with the superintendent. Well, the superintendent got a little smarter over time, and he realized, hey, you get to see these folks every now and then. My principals and teachers get to see them every day. So I asked our principals to meet with me and to bring family members with them. And so now it's not uncommon when we meet on a monthly basis to have 50, 60, 70 Marshallese families meeting with us. You want to know what their quote? Their one question, and it really kind of got my attention. They had one question. Dr. Rollins, what do our children need to do to have a chance to go to college and to gain a scholarship? Does that surprise anybody? That would be their resounding question. It caught my attention. These families understand that their children are going to have to make school a priority. And more and more and more of them are going to join us in that effort. Our Marshallese children haven't made school the priority that we know they all have to do. But for those who have, it should be no surprise that they have the great potential and promise. If we can do our work, if we can find a way to connect, they're going to fly too. And that's what we want for all of our kids. Okay. Dr. Jacobs is going to help us be more thoughtful about what it means to be innovative, about what it means to be a contemporary teacher, about what it means to really teach today's kids. I'm so proud that she's here, and at the appropriate time, she'll come up on stage. I want you to give her a resounding welcome. She is one of the great teachers of our time, I am so honored that she can be here to address each of you. I want to thank you again for all your great work, and I want to thank you for choosing to serve in the Springdale school system.
See if this will work. In Springdale, we're here for the kids, right? Well, we're going to be entertained by some today. That's always one of the highlights of what we do. You see Clint Penalto rolling that out. This is one of his students. Her name is Carly Johnson. Now here's what she's going to be doing. I hope I can say this right. She's going to be singing the song, O Mio Babino Caro. Bambino, okay? It's from the opera Giovanni Schicchi, written by Giacomo Puccini in 1918. One thing I know about 1918 is World War I ended and the Red Sox won the World Series. Translated, this title means, "Oh, my dear father," and is sung by the lead, Loieta, who is begging her father to allow her to continue to see the boy she loves, even though tension between their families threaten to separate them. Carly?
Good morning. That was Miss McGowan on the piano, and Carly, you did an absolutely amazing job. My name's Marcia Smith. I'm the Associate Superintendent, and I'm pleased to announce today's keynote speaker. Dr. Heidi Hayes Jacobs is Executive Director of the Curriculum Mapping Institute and founder and president of Curriculum Designers. She has served as an education consultant to schools nationally and internationally on curriculum mapping, dynamic instruction, and 21st century strategic planning. Dr. Jacobs has taught at Columbia University Teachers College since 1981. However, the fundamental backbone of her experiences come from years of a teacher of elementary, junior high, and high school students. Working with a wide range of organizations, Dr. Jacobs has been a consultant to the College Board, Peace Corps, Discovery Channel, Children's Television Network, the International Baccalaureate, state education departments, and the list goes on. Dr. Jacobs is the author of 13 books, and the recent book, Bold Moves, refers to what educators need to make to engage all learners. Her book examines every aspect of K through 12 curriculum and instruction, as well as physical and virtual learning spaces that engage the 21st century teachers and learners. At this time, will you please help me welcome Dr. Heidi Hayes Jacobs.
Thank you. Good morning. Let me start off by saying that Dr. Rollins, you inspire me. I often am reminded of a quotation I like very much from the philosopher Elvin, when he said, if you're going to be a lifelong teacher, above all, be a public learner. I think you are the quintessential public learner. I was also moved by honoring, the surprise honoring of the board member. I don't know you, but I sensed in the room a tremendous appreciation for all that you do. And then to follow this young woman. I live in New York. We want her there. So I don't know your district. My impressions are very positive from what I've seen, and you don't really know me. Let me just start off by saying this, that I will give you the best that I have, and I'm very confident. I have a lot of experience, and it counts. I've worked in every state in this country, in 6 continents. I have not worked in Antarctica yet. I say this not out of ego. I'm way past that stage in my life. And the other reason I can say I have confidence is I'm at a stage in my life where I'm very comfortable saying I don't know something. I don't know if any of you in my generation know what I'm saying, but I can say what I want. I really don't care what somebody else says. Like, if I don't know something, I'll find somebody who does. I don't have so much to prove. But I'll give you the best of my experience. And I must say, I cannot think of a better time to be an educator. So let's begin. Here's my, let's see, are we on? There we go. This is my contact information. How many of you use Twitter? I hope you do. There's not a day that goes by I don't pick up on another research article or a new concept or a new idea. I encourage you to do that. It's who you follow. It's getting a bad name just because of all of the machinations we see in the news, whatever your politics or whatever, but it's a really good tool. How many of you would agree with me? It really is. I really think so. What we're going to work on, basically, is I thought I would start by sharing with you a few images I collect, archival images of schools. This is an old school from Oklahoma, and I want you to notice that it's multi-age grouping. When you taught in a one-room schoolhouse, you had all the kids. I want you to notice the seating arrangement in the next one. Come on, let's do her. There. It's clever. I think an imaginative teacher here. They all seem very relaxed. I'm sort of terrified looking, especially the one standing up, but whatever, okay. So this is from here. I'm a little interested in the slant approach. Leaning tower of whatever. But anyway, I did go look at some of your older buildings as well. Now we start to see the beginning in the early part of the 1900s of rows. Rose. There's not one of you who would choose to have that chair at your home as a place to relax. Honey, bring out my old high school chair. I just really need to think for a while. I don't think so. So this is our essential question we're going to be looking at. And I'm a big believer in the use of essential questions. It drives what I do. This question drives everything I do. And in my presentation with you today, I have a limited amount of time, and I had to make choices. Sound familiar? And I hope to share a few things with you. So here's your advanced organizer. We're going to take a look at the type of student we have now. And in order to do that, I always have an empty chair. And any of you who've ever seen me speak over the last several decades, actually, if I'm even in a room with, say, a high school faculty, I want a chair there that's empty, and I ask for the name of a student in the school district. I did that this morning. One of you in the room knows who you are. We spoke briefly, and you gave me the name of a student who goes here. His name is Cooper. Cooper's here with me. I want you to imagine that. And I only have one rule of thumb today, and that's it. I am not here to sell you things. I don't do that. I'm not trying to persuade you. We're adults. We're going to interact. But here's one thing I would hold you to, and that is any decision you make, because you have a lot of choices about curriculum, assessment, instruction, the way you use space, the way you group your kids, has to be in Cooper's best interest. Sound reasonable? We don't always do that. Sometimes we do things out of habit. How many of you have your own children? Would you ever take your children to a doctor who says, every September, I'm going to give your child this shot because I'm just so good at doing it. It's my favorite shot. It doesn't work, does it? In fact, don't doctors take an oath and they say, first of all, we shall do no harm. So we're not going to do habit. That means we're going to have to make choices. We're going to have to get a little uncomfortable. Do you all remember Piaget, who said the only way an organism grows is through disequilibration? That means you're uncomfortable. You know that feeling when you're trying something new and it feels a little awkward? It's a great thing. So my goal, and I just want to be open with you, is for you to all leave emotionally disturbed. Then I know it's been terrific. You think I'm joking. Okay, Cooper, here's the deal. You and I are going to take a look at what's in your best interest. And classroom teachers in the front here, just pop your hands up. Okay. You and I may not agree on what's in his same interest, but if we're both arguing for him, I'd say that's like a healthy second opinion. Agreed? I'm not looking for you to all agree, but we're not doing things just because we're used to them or we're comfortable. Again, imagine a doctor saying, I don't know, I've heard of these technologies, I've heard of x-rays, but I just kind of know by looking at the patient. It's not going to be like that. You're also going to see a lot of images. I'm going to be showing you quite an array of extraordinary physical spaces from all over the world. It's not meant to necessarily mean you would imitate all of them, but it's just showing you what is happening when innovation is manifest in physical settings. Things really are shifting. It's quite something. So I think I have to do it this way. There's the book, Bold Moves for Schools. This is based on. My colleague, Marie Alcock, is an extraordinary talent, and it was a pleasure to work with her on the book. All right, so it's always started here. It's always started with Cooper. But now we start to see some changes. Let's see. There. How's that for a chair? How many early childhood teachers would like that in their classes? How many of you would like to sit in one like that? Okay, well, look at this. This is the class of 2030. So you're entering young children who are 3, 4, 5. School isn't going to look the same in 2030. And you know why? I'm looking at it. I didn't invite myself to come down here, and it isn't about me. It's about what we're talking about today. Because you and schools all over this country and around the world recognize that the structures of schools have to change because they're holding back the learning possibilities. That's absolutely true. I don't know why you're applauding. I think it's kind of depressed. Never mind. It's okay. No, yeah, you can applaud. That was nice. So, I've got to get the angle. Is it this? Let's see. All right, this is the angle. Excuse me for turning my back, but the changing device is behind. Or you all understand? Just say, yeah, we get it. Okay, good, all right. So one thing I would say that's interesting is knowledge is burgeoning every day. Who knows what this is a picture of? Call it out. That's right, SpaceX. These are landing. How many of you saw this landing recently? Was it not the most shocking thing you've ever seen? How many of you would agree? I'm like, this looks like they're running it in reverse, because with the Musk project, they were able to pull the space vessels around and they landed simultaneously. This to me is just one example. If I'm a science teacher, most teachers in the United States have the exact same schedule for science as their counterparts did 100 years ago. Science is changing quite a bit, would you agree? When I'm in a district that says we're going to update our science program every 5 years, I start coughing. I start choking on my coffee. I'm like, why don't you try every 5 minutes? So one of your challenges right now is you've got new kids coming up, you have knowledge changing every day, you have new literacies, digital, media, and global. I wrote a 4-book series, came out in 2014, on each of the literacies and how to lead them. I think they're different from one another. I'm going to challenge you by saying I believe that most of the children you teach are not digitally literate. They have digital access. It's different to be literate. I think a lot of kids hop on the internet, take the first thing out of a browser. That's like walking in the library and say, oh, just give me the first book. You've seen one, you've seen them all. Sometimes I'm not sure they know where they're driving the starship when they're on the internet. And media literacy, all those rectangles, television, film, a computer screen, somebody else decides what they see, and it's so passive. I've never been in a school in my own country, not once, not in elementary, where there's a strong television literacy program. That's even last century's genre. It's infinitely more of a force than print. We're manipulated by media unless we have the chops to really examine it. And that means we have to be better media makers. We look at these new literacies, and that's on your plate. So you got new learning, new knowledge, a new kind of kid. And we want to link new literacies to classical. I was happy to hear that you are working, many of your schools, with the Teachers College, that's where I'm affiliated, Reading Writing Project. I taught full-time in the 80s. I was a professor there, and when I first started teaching there, I became very good friends with somebody many of you know, Lucy Calkins. And I've known Lucy for almost 30 years, and I can't think of anyone with more fidelity or integrity to their beliefs. She's exceptional. But what was interesting, she asked me to work as their thought leader with the faculty there. And I want you to notice they now have a clearinghouse on their website, because I was working with them on the integration of teaching classical reading, writing, speaking with the new literacies. And what I think you have is that challenge. They're not separate. All of you are language teachers. If you're a math teacher, you're a reading teacher, because if the kids can't read, they're toast. But here's the other side of it. We want to use the new literacies so it's not at odds, but they're mutually supplemental. And a big part of the curriculum work I do is in this. I have another book that came out last year on active literacy, connecting these literacies. To me, that's another challenge. So here I am looking at a new time where it would be insufficient to simply try to use classical print, because if a kid can't read, they can't read a computer screen. But I want them to be good media makers, not just flash anything from YouTube and pop it up there. That isn't quality. That's what new kinds of learners need. So we have all these changes. Here's a group of 5th graders in Florida, Jacksonville, and they're doing global research. They're doing a live Skype session with a National Geographic explorer in Antarctica. What are the kids studying? Antarctica. Now, the teacher could have said, oh, we just don't have time for this. We have a really good chapter at the end of the book. We all know that Antarctica is always the last continent. It's the runt continent. If you have time, you get there. Who knows what I'm talking about? But instead, they're actually doing on-time, real-time research. That's what kids should be doing. So when we look at the opportunities for globalization, new digital tools, And then we come to this question then. I love this photograph. This is from a middle school in Denmark, in Copenhagen. What we're looking at then is to look at the question of how can we really help learners who have all of this new information coming in, new ways of working, and are creating and sharing knowledge differently from previous generations. I want to do a little experiment because after this sort of intro, which is sort of setting the stage, I'm going to dive into some specifics. But I want to pose a question for you. And what I'd like to do is ask if I can do this, because there's a lot of you. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. We're not going to quite do 3, because I've got a limited amount of time. Are you sitting by somebody you're on speaking terms with? A few of you saying no. Okay. Here's your options. No, I understand. If you don't like that person that much, let's just be adult and say, I really don't like you that much. And let's just be real. I'm going to talk to somebody else. Or I live in New York. You can talk to yourself. That's okay with me. So I'm going to ask you to reflect on this, but I want you to think about Cooper, not in the abstract, real, because it could be positive, negative. What do you see happening with all of the influx of what we've got? We've got new kids. Just hit the highlight reel for a minute. Now, to get your attention back, that's my experiment, I'm going to just do a classic Carol Ann Tomlinson move, which is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then when it's 1, could we all be quiet? Can we do that? All right, go. 2 minutes, talk. All right. Okay. 5, excuse me. 5, 4. Oh, this is great. You're wonderful. 3, 2, and 1. Now, I'm not 100% sure what you said, but I want to get into something that to me is grounding. And when Dr. Rollins did his presentation, he referenced a little bit of the language from my book. This is real important. I say this as colleague to colleague. It is so easy to go jump into starting to revise curriculum or to jump into a new design of a building without really looking at this most critical question. Pedagogy is everything in our profession. It is our profession. And the decision on pedagogy is extremely important because it has to do with roles. It has to do with my role in relationship to Cooper. And if you look back in history, if you look at any program, you get pretty good at this. I'm almost like an amateur Margaret Mead, truly. I have been to so many schools in my career, so many different types of places. It's humbling. It's an honor. It's amazing. But you can tell very quickly what people's roles are. So in my view, what I would say is this is a very simple graphic, but it's going to work, I think, for us. In looking at the research and the study of education, there are really, it seems to me, and Marie as well, 3 clusters of roles. And think about this. First of all is antiquated. And that is, I have no relationship to Cooper. Listen to this verb. I'm covering the curriculum. What's the pronoun? I'm getting through this puppy. I don't know what he's doing, but I'm getting through it. Oh, I'm not joking. How many of you have been in classes like that yourself as a student? You go in watching a teacher do the Roman Empire. There's no relationship. Here's the role. I'm the dispenser, you're the receptacle. It's passive. It's very passive. That's what we need to cut, because it isn't in his best interest. Because if he's not engaged, what is he? Disengaged. So why are we wasting our time? The second is classical. This is interesting because it's different. Anything classical is timeless. Everybody in your head, think of a great work of literature. It could be religious, it could be literary, but it goes way back in time, but still holds up. You've got 30 seconds. Turn to your colleague and identify what it is. Go. Okay. 5, excuse me, 4, 3, 2, 1. How many of you said To Kill a Mockingbird? Anybody say, excuse me, anybody say The Odyssey? Yes, these are very popular. Anybody choose Shakespeare? Yes. I'm a Shakespeare fan, big Shakespeare fan, and, excuse me, please. Okay. And one of the reasons we read Shakespeare or To Kill a Mockingbird or The Odyssey or whatever you read is because it's always timeless. It's timely. We want to keep it. That's what classical means. We don't want to get rid of it. It's why in middle schools we generally see schools introduce Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. It's a light comedy. It's about a guy who thinks he's a jackass and everyone's fairies, which is the middle school experience. You know. The middle school people aren't laughing. They're going, it's true. It's really, that's it. That's it. And then we say, let's start high school with a tragedy. Romeo and Juliet. Love doesn't work. You're going to die, and welcome to high school. Here we go. You're laughing, but you know I'm on to something. Here's the point. Why do we keep teaching this rich literature? Because it works. Well, all of you in this room were trained classically. You have a very important role in relationship. You're a guide. You teach. You coach. You think about how you group Cooper with the other kids. When do you sit on the sidelines and let them go? When you do direct teaching, how do you make it interesting? You care very much. We don't want to get rid of that. And even with all of the modern tools we have, it's necessary and it's needed, probably more than ever. But guess what? We have a new kind of learner. We need new roles and new relationships and new types of teachers for a contemporary type of learning because it has shifted. So what do we create? Here are some of the roles. We write about it in our book, and we actually have a section in our book on a new job description for teachers. By the way, you're probably noticing I'm limping just a little bit. Quick aside, I had a mishap in April, slipped on a slippery tile floor after a rainstorm. This is my first presentation without my cane, so I think I'm doing good. Yes, that applause I'll take. But it's right by here, and if I fall, there's a lawsuit involved. So here we go. That's an idea. Actually, so one of the things I just want to point out is we want literate self-navigators because just like any of you can reach into your pocket and hop online, kids are doing it on their own. We want them to be literate. To be literate isn't just to decode, it's to be discriminating, to be, here's a good word, discerning, to be selective, to know what's reliable. We need to have, oh, that was a nice transition. Let's do that again. Cool. We want professional learners. It's very interesting because we look at PLCs, we look at professional learners, being professional learners ourselves. We want our students to do the same. This is a room in a middle school outside of Chicago, Deerfield 214. Amazing. I have some great footage from that district. They are really, really rocking it in terms of innovation. The kids designed this room. The middle school kids were given the budget to buy furniture as long as they could make proposals that met the budget. And this is a PL room for personalized learning. And what's happening is students need to be able to know, when do I go for sources? When do I have questions? To be a learner is to know when you need to learn something, and is also how you go about it. I think we also need social contractors. And here's one of the things that's important to me. It's not only social media, and I appreciate the work on cyberbullying and some of these issues. They're very real. But I think another way around it that's quite constructive is to say, every time like I post on Twitter, I have a contract for the people who follow me and vice versa. So if I'm following you, in a way, we're making that contract. I think the idea of contracts is a more adult, less, I don't know, hierarchical kind of environment. Instead of, you kids better do that, which is kind of a little bit pedantic. It's more of an engagement. You're contracting with people. And if you post something, we create a school website or a class website, and you're posting some of your videos you've made, you are making a contract because others are going to see it. We want to develop that responsibility, but we also want them to know who to reach, to be part of many networks. Networking is an incredibly important tool. This is a very important one, and probably for me, I have a very real soft spot for this. I just don't think we're doing anything in my own country on media criticism. I just don't see it. I don't think kids really study film. A movie is, what in elementary schools, it's a rainy day, and they show, what is that movie, every kid, Frozen? I mean, I think every kid in America knows those whole, you know what I'm saying? So it's a rainy day thing as opposed to studying it. I worked with a school recently where we got the screenplay. You can get the screenplay to anything you show. And it was a group of second language learners. They were watching Frozen, and they were following the script, and it was helping them with their English. I mean, for crying out loud, if you're going to use film, study it. I don't think there should be a kid in Australia, where I've done a lot of work, there's not a kid who graduates from year 8, which is like our 8th grade, who doesn't make a full documentary. That's part of your requirements. Your kid should be the same. There should not be a kid who graduates from your school who hasn't made multiple documentaries, short docs in 5th grade. Who has a laptop? How many of you don't know the half of what your laptop will do? And that includes techies. You're sitting on a film production studio. I have so many good examples of this. So that means we need to be good critics to be able to make judgments about film and sources, but we also want them to be savvy media makers, to make quality in the same way we work on writing. Mindful citizens, this is a program. Kids in Brooklyn built this room for meditation. It's pretty awesome. And I don't know if you know the research on just even quiet, silent time in a day. I don't care if you meditate formally or not. Who knows what it does to kids? It slows them down. Guess what it does to adults? It saves their souls. So, global ambassadors. We work really hard with schools to make sure there's not a year that goes by that a class doesn't either use Zoom or Skype with another part of the world or another part of the state. I'm doing some work in some wonderful schools in the Houston area, and they have a requirement, I believe it's like 7th grade, where they're to study the different parts of Texas. And now we've changed it, and they're doing Adopt a Town. And every student is going to adopt a town in the state of Texas, become an expert on that town, Skype with the mayor's office, Skype with kids in the school, do a total portfolio electronically of the town and a prediction of its future. They already have newspapers in those towns reaching out to find out what they're finding. Investigative report. I think those kids are going to be a lot more involved than go to chapter 3 on your Texas history book and do the questions at the end. Has there been a child in your district who has ever woken up once since the beginning of this district who said, "Mom, we're doing the questions at the end of the chapter book. I can't wait"? I don't think so. Probably my favorite right now, innovative design, is, and this is a cool space. This is from a school in St. Louis. The librarians there, basically, it was very simple, took out a wall, put in those wonderful plexiglass, the high tables. Flat screen TVs are very inexpensive. Who knows what I'm saying? And this has become the idea lab. You build it and they will come. If, in fact, and I want you to watch this question, it's going to come up again and again, what types of learning experiences do we want our kids to have? What types of spaces are inducements for those? You don't do this in a self-contained classroom. Just saying. And it wasn't expensive. So in looking at the way we work, then if our kids are this way, then what does that mean about us? You need to be this. I need to be this. You know, I really like learning new things. I do. I'm a sucker for it. I'm an educator. But I like the feeling of being uncomfortable. I like it when somebody poses something new. I would challenge you this year to pick up the gauntlet and to tell Cooper, you know what, this year I'm going to get a lot better at making film and media. Guess who might be able to help you? That's absolutely right. So in examining these questions, these are our new roles, and then the question really becomes, first, now I'm going to get to the issue of the learning environments, and then we'll touch on some curriculum and learning experiences. This gets me really pumped, what we're going to get into next. For about the last 15, 20 years, I have been really absorbed with studying architecture. And when I teach at Columbia University, I actually would co-teach curriculum design courses with an architect, because I think laying out curriculum is a form of laying out a blueprint. And I started to really study it, and then I started to get more involved in learning spaces themselves. But in my work, the thing I started to recognize is why I don't like to be called a school reformer. I don't like school reform because it tends to just tweak things a little. I was interested in new forms. And what I recognized with all the experience is you can try as hard as you want as a teacher, but you are nested in a series of structures, and they inhibit you or they give you possibilities. Here, I guess this way maybe. Okay, try again. There. One is time, your schedule. I would say your schedule is your destiny. Because if you have 40 minutes, what are you going to do? You can only plan for 40 minutes type of activities. And if you teach middle school, it ain't 40 minutes, because those kids don't rush to their seats and say, feed me, oh learned one. So the schedule, and that's year long, and length of year, and day and the time of day schedules. Space, both physical and virtual spaces, dictate what you can do. The way we group our learners is critical. And that's when we really run on habit. Most schools in this country still run on grade levels. Although, honestly, it's a bit of a farce. Who knows about red-shirting kindergarten boys? Yeah, exactly. So you end up with a fourth grade class where you have some boys that are like this, and you've got a wide range of kids. And I go into a fourth grade class, some of them look like they're about first grade, who knows what I'm saying, and act like it. Who teaches fourth grade? Who knows what I'm saying? And you have some of the kids who look like freaking student teachers. I mean, you got a range anyway, but the way we group is pretty interesting. And then this is another one, personnel configurations. Because the siloing of high school departments is by design. Very few American high schools all the people who actually teach ninth grade come to a room together. People meet by departments, although Cooper doesn't go to a department. Just saying. You see what I'm saying? If I fell off here, broke my other leg or something, and I cracked my head open, and let's say I have a heart condition, what's the closest hospital? Very reassuring. That was not very reassuring. What's the closest hospital? Somebody help me. All right, now we're better. Okay, you look strong. You look pretty strong. You're good. You scoop me up. You take me in your car. We get down to the hospital. You're there in the emergency room. You go in and you go, oh my gosh, look, her arm, her leg, her head, she has a heart condition. Oh, I'm so sorry, but we meet by departments. They don't meet by departments. They meet by departments to do some sharing. But for the patient's point of view, it's the team that comes together to help. We don't do that. We meet by habit. Same thing with grade levels. In elementary, we're rigid on grade level, where we know from the work in New Zealand and Australia, others, we should be meeting, begins with a V, vertically. So the configurations of all four of these come together. And what I've been noticing is an interesting problem. I'll go back here. This sets the stage for my argument that is being picked up on, and I'm glad about it. See, to me, what happens is schools take one of these and tweak around with it, and they wonder why it's not working. We'll change our schedule. We'll have a modular schedule. I'm going, well, right, but how are you grouping the kids? We don't know, but we're just going to do, we're going to have long blocks. We're going to have 90-minute blocks. And some teacher says, now what will I do? I guess I'll just talk slowly. And so the thing is, you know, it's superficial. Or if we just change the way the groups are working, I said, but your schedule's still rigid. The point here is it's who teaches physics? Great. There's two laws of physics I'll mention. One is the whole is the sum of the parts. You got to work on all four. You have to, and you have to simultaneously. It isn't that you make all the moves at the same time, but you will hit the wall. The second rule is the killer, is that form should follow function. But in your classrooms, form leads your function. You have to do what the schedule gives you. You're handed a group of kids, and if you're in a self-container, which is a vestige of those first photographs of the one-room schoolhouse, it is not working. Those boundaries have to start to shift. Not all at once. Bold moves doesn't mean reckless. It means courageous, and it means thoughtful, too. So I'm going to start by looking at learning spaces, and I'm going to show you a series of images, and I'm not going to say much about them. I just want you to look at them and just see what they tell you about how people are imaginatively changing rooms and spaces. And now a very important contention. This isn't the 60s where it was the open space versus closed space. Who remembers that period? Open space classrooms. Who remember those? It was really a scary time. Okay, I know. I know, it's starting a buzz. I want you to bring it back. Hold on. Hold on. Don't worry. We're not doing that anymore. What you're going to see, excuse me, are specific spaces for specific purposes. So what you'll start to notice will be changes in schools where you'll begin to see shifts in the spaces where kids work. These are pop-ups. This is very popular now. So if I wanted to bring a group of kids in for a study group or a discussion, there are very interesting new ways, and they're not expensive, and they're really pretty cool. How's that? Yeah, do you want to go to the library? This is an easy one. One thing that's happening is also there was a lot of concern early about the notion of lounging areas that would be distraction. Do you know what it is? They actually increase concentration. If you're at an airport, don't you look for the most comfortable place to sit? Oops, I'll go back to this last one. This is a seminar room. So who teaches history in the room? Anybody? Say on your lesson plans, you would not just be putting the discussion you're going to have. Say you want to have a debate on, say, the debate on Thomas Jefferson's first draft of the Declaration of Independence. It's going to be really an interesting discussion. And you don't just put it in there. Your kids are going to go to the seminar space to have it. In other words, it's conducive to that kind of work. You'll also see, over here, you see those little cubbies where people are sitting? The research is also clear, kids read better in those. So when someone says, we're going to have silent reading in our class, and I'm in some of these hard chairs, you don't read very well in those hard chairs. And so you'll see that these are designed for the high school student. More of the pop-up spaces emerge. There's also, soundproof spaces. So our young singer could go in and practice, or you could go in at the end of the day and yell if you needed to. Furniture supports interaction, all different sizes and lengths and different ways of working. Here's another pop-up. And you see how focused the kids are. What I see that's really interesting in the designs is also we're seeing the use of outdoor spaces, rooftop spaces. This was made by a STEM class for an early childhood center. I really like that. There's flow and sidebars. There's more open spaces in certain areas, but what I want to get at is there's use and work with alcoves as well. Now, this is cool. Elevated. Who remembers tree houses? Sometimes you go up to the tree house to just get away and reflect. Elevated spaces are super effective. And these are from some schools in Europe right now, this particular picture. Maker spaces, which can be just popping with innovation. Media maker spaces. This is one of my favorites, portable green rooms. Every single school in your district should have a green room. You know what? I've seen films made in inner city New Haven, Connecticut, where it's like 90% free and reduced lunch. And the third grade teacher just used cardboard, green. Who knows what I'm talking about? Every single one of you should learn how to use green spaces where you can have your kids put up different backgrounds and make really good quality. But there's a lot of new portable ways of working too. There's a lot of work on exteriors. I have hundreds of photos of exteriors, but light and space and glass is pretty interesting. This is one I just wanted to pull up. This is from Aldinga in South Australia. Australia has states as well, but this is in the bush country. And what I think they did that was beautiful is they had very limited resources, but the alcove is becoming the new thing in primary education. The places where kids can sit, read, have a little bit more of a moment. And also the colors. I think a color has a real impact on the brain. But that blue is so soothing to the eye, and the use of the exterior shot, I think, is really nice as well. I'm now a member of an architectural firm, and it's Fielding Nair. They work in 47 countries. I work with architects all over the country. I don't work exclusively for them. But what's happened is I've now gone to schools where I'm with them on their side, going to work with a school. And the biggest dilemma is this now. Sometimes a group really gets excited, has all sorts of interesting blueprints and designs, but they didn't include the teachers. That's a mistake. Because what will happen is you suddenly have this building and teachers are going, what am I supposed to do with this? So I think it's important to collaborate, even on small innovations in your school. Now, this I hope works, but this is a really terrific little video clip. It'll take about 1.5 minutes. It's by Fielding Nair, and what they're showing you is the concept of bells and cells, because classrooms are real just cells, moving to a learning community. Hopefully it'll run. There's no sound. Take a look. So, it's a very provocative little clip. Here's what this led me to get to, and it connects directly to teachers. I started to look at blueprints, and I pulled up, I have a couple here from Fielding Nair, and what I noticed is they didn't use the word classroom. I don't see the word classroom anymore. What I see are all kinds of new terms, which means if I start to shift as a teacher and I'm going in my lesson planning and my unit design, I'm not only thinking about the type of activity, but the spaces are actually an inducement for me to think of something different or new. So I begin to think, gee, what might we do in that seminar space? Or what might we do in our Classics Academy? Or in our media editing lab? And what happens is planning has shifted. So in a sense, it's a dance between the changes in the spaces and the changes in the experiences as well. So I'm very excited about this. And I wrote an article for American Association of School Administrators, AASA. They asked me to write an article. It came out last fall. And it occurred to me that if I were a teacher and I was looking at all these images, I'm going, well, we aren't jumping up to these really exciting new ones. I think you should see them. I think it's important to see what's going on. But it struck me that in a way there's a spectrum. And what I do see is even the simplest rearranging your room a little bit can help. But there is, to me, one of the big ones is changing furniture. I think that the furniture is a killer. How many of you know what I'm getting at? My favorite professional read last year was Todd Rose's The End of Average. Did anyone see that book? Oh my gosh, that's a fabulous book. It isn't about schools, but it talks about how after World War II, there were so many pilots who were so effective in the war who started to become pilots in the commercial airline industry, but there was a whole slew of accidents, and they attributed them to the fact that the actual cockpit chair was all standard and wasn't adjustable. Yes. And so they began to make adjustable furniture. You know, when I started this article out, and it was totally real, I'll go. So here we are. Brian is the name of the student, is 6 feet tall. He has to deal with the same high school chair as little Eloise, who's about 4'10". And they spend about 30 to 40% of their energy trying to get comfortable. So one thing I'd say that to begin to look at, or even some places in beginning to adjust your furniture, and then there's also the possibility of remodeling and rethinking spaces in schools, then designing additional areas and structures to employ and deploy outdoor spaces, and then total new school design and new forms of learning environments. I'm not saying any one of these is better, but I think you have to look at Cooper and say, there's nothing I can do about it. I think there is. And I would challenge you to begin that investigation. The spaces matter a lot. So I got these images recently from Tracy Robinson, who teaches in St. Anne, Missouri. I was speaking at a state conference there, and she said, look what I've started to do with my learning spaces. And now other teachers in my class are starting to come, and it's been making a real difference. I imagine you have teachers in this district doing the same. I would suggest you start a gallery on your website to show some of the imaginative ways people are changing spaces. It isn't change for change's sake. It's the fact that the rigidity reflects rigidity in our teaching and learning. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes right now, and then I want to touch on a few of the other structures and then go right to the heart of the matter about what it looks like in our teaching and learning. Just chat again for a moment about this. Go. Okay. Excuse me. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I want to honor, I know how programs go, and sometimes things run a little bit, you have to accommodate. And so I'm going to have to make some choices here on what to emphasize. But I want you to hold the thought. The other thing to me is, and I'm going to get into this a little bit more with the time piece, is that I really understand that you're not going to be suddenly changing all your buildings. But here's a gut feeling. It really upsets me a lot. I'm often asked, I'm very happy that I get invited to do keynotes. I enjoy them. I think you can get an idea across or two. And especially in a galvanizing launch, it was really a privilege and a pleasure to be with you on your opening. But I think the other thing here is that in this experience is I've seen some realities when I'm out working around the country that disturb me. You will get money to start to build new buildings at some point. You're a big district, you'll get it. And I'm speaking to principals out there and to school leaders, and some of you in the audience will have these responsibilities. And what I've learned from my architects is the head of Building Nair said to me, Prakash Nair, he's originally from India, is he said, when I speak to these groups, I'm telling them this is their chance, and it's not going to change for 25 years. So I was recently asked to work in a Midwestern state, and I'm not going to say what state, it's just that it has a bunch of syllables. I don't know if that helps. And I was asked to keynote, and they said, Heidi, we want you to go to our new high school. It's like everyone's going to see it. It's beautiful. You're talking about new ideas. Seems like a perfect setting. I go, great, sure. So I go. I get up in the morning. They bring me. We're driving up. It's sitting on a hill. It's beautiful from the outside. We drive in, and my heart sunk. It looked just like a school from the 1950s, but with a lot of glass. Who knows what I'm saying? It's still the self-container. It was so rigid in the design. And they had one big room. And I was just so sad because they're going to have to live with that. And I'm just seeing so many more interesting things happen. I'd rather see people slow down a little and open up their portals to look around. The other thing is, I know this is one of my own Achilles heel, but I try to keep aware of it. We are limited by what we know. If I say, what do we want kids to know and be able to do, I'm limited by what I know and am able to do. If we start to say we want to redesign our schools, we go, well, this is what school's always been. You need to start to look at what's new out there. So with this in mind, I'm just going to touch on this, because I could do and do presentations and work on all of these elements in depth. But I think I wanted to just set the notion that the element of the schedule, there's a few critical considerations. You're really dealing with long-term time issues, and I'm talking everything to graduation, the length of the year, the nature of the year, short-term, meaning immediate, daily, weekly, monthly. And you're looking at synchronous time and asynchronous time, and this is particularly true when we deal with virtual schedules, that I can schedule something where we all have to be together for a common Skype session, but I could have it asynchronous because I have a program, a documentary I want my kids to view, but they can do it on their own time. You follow what I'm getting at? There's newer ways to think about the schedule. So to start off, there's that, and then I just want to throw out a few of my bugaboos. I am totally against 12th grade graduation. It makes absolutely no sense to me. And I don't say that to be cavalier. My husband and I have 2 adult children, our daughter and son. I was thrilled the day they could throw the caps up in the air, but looking back, one of them should have been able to leave high school earlier. The other one could have used a little more time. And that's the truth. We send kids out with diplomas who are set for remedial courses in college and aren't ready. Some kids could have a better life if they had another year. They drop out. Some kids are ready for post-secondary. There's something not quite rational about this. I think you're going to see it shift. The other thing I would raise is the idea of changing the idea right now of summer semester, which tends to be punitive, as opposed to an incentive for more coursework and different ways of working. So to just start with, it seems to me proficiency makes the most sense. I'd ask you to take a look at the work of our smallest state. It is the only state that requires a digital portfolio that starts with kindergarten, and they've been doing it for 12 years. That's Rhode Island. You don't graduate without one. And the kids choose the work to show they've met the standard. I think that's called growing up. And you take a look at it. I even have it in my computer. It would be so fun to show you sometime. I have a little girl, Carlene. I have her first grade selection. She chose to show she was beginning to learn to read. And it wasn't with a digital camera. It was some big clunky camera that you could tell the teacher didn't really know how to use it, but it was okay. So you see Carlene struggling through, and I just saw her graduation entry where she did a presentation on the meaning of education in 2 languages because she wanted to learn a second language. And look at that graduation. She showed she was ready. You're talking about personalized learning, and the kids should be personally responsible to show and be involved with their demonstrations. To me, that's also, instead of seat time, 12th grade, it's when we're ready. This is probably one of my favorite activities I do with teachers, but we're actually working with a group in Montana. We've got 40 schools working with us on a project. But I've been a big fan of bidding, meaning instead of I have 40 minutes every day or I have a rotating block, teams of teachers, and you have to be in a team, can bid on time for specific purposes. Right now, you teach to time as opposed to saying, what are some of the learning experiences my kids need? What type of time would I have? So I'll do a currency project. Just if I go overseas, you know, you get a new currency, you have to figure out what you can spend it on. So if I were to turn to you right now and I said, what are good types of classroom activity where 20 minutes is just right? And they turn to a colleague and give peer feedback on a piece of writing. What would you do if you had 3 hours? Wow, I'd show them a documentary and put them in groups after. Do you see what I'm saying? You don't do that because you're restricted by your schedule. In fact, I see people walk around depressed with their they're like victims of the schedule. I'd be creative. I can't because of the schedule. Who wrote the schedule? We don't know. We don't know. We think it's people in New Mexico, Roswell or something. So the point, you know, it's just, you know, I'm like, you're acting like you're victims. It's not true. The other is to break out of the notion and have more nighttime classes, especially for older kids. And then the other is, of course, the notion, clearly, of virtual time and more effective ways of including this in our lesson planning, being more deliberate about it, because I think they're a unique genre for any of these. And right now, I'm just pointing to them, but obviously this is just a touchstone. A couple other quick points about the grouping of learners. And obviously there's a lot more here, but just to sort of whet your appetite. To me, there's 2 levels of grouping that exist. One is institutional. Your institution, you as teachers, determines how you group your kids if you do age grouping. Right now, most of you do that. You have elementary, middle, and high school. There are places that don't do that to start. We do a thing called grade level. Who's looped before? Who's done looping? Elementary? That's a different way of age grouping, isn't it? Or you look at multi-age grouping. In your high school, you have a lot of multi-age grouping. Band has different ages, probably some of your math classes and so forth. The point here is this is done on habit as opposed to other ways of looking. Gender is an interesting question. I've worked in all-girls schools and all-boys schools. They're very different, and there's a different way of running them. But we know in the research we probably should be separating the genders in math around 3rd and 4th grade because we know both do significantly better. Just saying, you know, there's some interesting ways of looking at that variable. Subject configurations tend to be very dominant, especially in secondary. We have a math class and a science class. I'm going to Finland at the end of September. I've been there once before, but I'm going with 3 colleagues. We've set up our own study group because we're going to be looking at this new thing that's occurring there. I guess you know in Finland, which is a leader in so many areas in education, they're eliminating subjects in the high school. And they're doing what's called phenomena-based education. I'm very curious about how they're grouping students and how they're grouping their teachers. The idea then is if you had an interdisciplinary team, that's different than if you're departmentally organized. But I think this question is going to start to open up to a lot of new possibilities. Right now, there are what are called pathway models that are based on aptitudes and abilities or interests. Lots of high schools are setting up a morning fairly classical, but the afternoon will be a pathway. STEM is the first that comes to mind, but there's a lot of other ones that are beginning to emerge, say, for example, on community or global perspectives, or pre-career types of experience. Then there's instructional grouping. And so you inherit your class. You're a third grade teacher. You didn't decide that. That was institutionally decided. You decide in your class if you're going to group kids for academic purposes, social purposes, the interest or type of task. However the institution feeds the kids to you, you group them. But what if you were working differently with them because they were organized differently and you were working with other teachers as well? To me, this is one of the most important things, as students learn how to take care of themselves and to begin to be good self-managers. I would remind you that if you look at Turning Points, which came out Terrence Bell during the Reagan administration, was the beginning of the middle school movement. There's a footnote there. It's very interesting to me. The most independent self-managing students are the kids, the oldest kids in your elementary school. How many of you go to 5th grade in your elementary? Or is it 6th here? 5th, okay. 5th graders, I bet you're very comfortable having them help a kindergarten teacher get kids down a hall. Am I right? How many of you can think of 5th graders who you would have them answer a phone if you needed them to? Am I right? 5th graders are able to get to the library and manage themselves pretty well. It goes downhill after that. I believe, I don't know your schools, don't get mad. You can get mad at me if you want, it's fine. I'm leaving, so it's all right. But the point, I think we infantilize high school kids a lot. We give them too much to do. And I think that part of it is the way we group our kids and the personnel configurations that go along with it. The antiquated model was hierarchical. Now it's more networking. This is what we're seeing in Finland, and we're seeing in many, many schools where you have multiple configurations. You are not just in a department. You might be leading a cohort on a pathway model. You might be working on a vertical interdisciplinary team, not just with your building, but say with the middle school if you're a high school teacher. This is one of my favorites. This is happening in California and a number of places where teachers are doing the work by their talent. So I'm in a high school in California where the science department, they've got one guy who is just a terrific lecturer. He does all the lectures. He does them all. Where other teachers work on the labs, that kind of thing. Pretty exciting. So in our book, you can basically see, keeping with the pedagogy and applying it across the board, what we look at is what to cut, keep, and create applies to our personnel, our grouping of our kids, time, and space. And in working through these structures, and I'm not asking you to read all this carefully, I just want you to know we've really thought this through, because you can go into a school and see why they're held back. Gosh, it just seems like we can't do that much interesting new projects. And I'm going, well, look at your schedule. I feel really isolated. You are isolated. You can see how it's designed. This is one of my favorite images. I love this image. Notice there's no teachers there. This was a very simple addition to the school, and the kids are doing a lot of their own work. So this last question I'll finish up with just a few images, is then the question is, what do we want our kids to know and be able to do, and what would be some examples of new types of learning experiences? We want to keep the best of our classical curriculum. We want to revise dated content. I don't think content's discussed enough. I really don't. We want to modernize our assessments. But we want to definitely have our kids engaged in quest-based curriculum content that can be global, local, or personal, whether they're looking at global sources for their quests. Many of you will recognize these 17 sustainability goals, whether we're having our kids study timely issues and to able, as I showed you before, globalize their learning, or we're looking at something local where kids are actually working with people in the local community, trying to solve real problems in their authentic areas. You can take almost anything you teach and give it more power. I also think we want to engender more personal opportunities. I would like to see more kids write a novel and have it take a year, or something long term, or create that documentary where it takes more time. So we have these, but this to me is probably going to be one of the more striking things for you to think about. We want the content to be modernized, but we want the assessments to be upgraded. The bread and butter point here is assessment is on 3 tiers. Is there anyone who coaches a team? Hands up. Okay, a lot of you. Where's the music people? People who teach music. Hands up. The 2 areas, or any of the arts, okay. The 2 areas that do the best job on assessment design are the arts and athletics. Because the whole purpose of assessment isn't to put something in your records, it's for Cooper to know how to improve his performance and to genuinely see how he can do it better. The whole point is the coach doesn't take the basketball out of his hands and says, here, let me finish your shot. The violin teacher wants to take the violin out of his hands a lot, but doesn't. Okay, I want a yes or no from my arts and PE people. In arts and PE, do you do drill and practice? Is it important? Yes, absolutely. That's true in any class. It's repeated, but guess what? It's specific. It's not busy work. And it's refined. You need it. Do you have assessment that's rehearsal or scrimmage? Yes, and that's very important for me to practice. Where is the teacher in these 2? Active. But now here's the difference. You always have an authentic performance. So in the soccer game, it's the game. And where is the coach? On the sidelines. And if you run out in the middle, what happens to you? You've got a recital. You don't stop it in the middle and go, oh, start over. What did your parents give you for dinner? I mean, you don't do that. But here's the problem. Majority of kids don't get to play the game in other subjects. I lose interest in basketball if I'm only doing rehearsal. And so one of the questions I often ask is this. I think a lot of the assessments we ask aren't authentic because they're not timely. So here's my question to you. What do modern scientists, historians, mathematicians, authors produce? It isn't 5-paragraph essays. Do you need those? Yes, but what are they? Rehearsals. Here are some of the things modern professionals produce. This is what I want Cooper to get good at producing. So here's my phrase. I want to see a lot of instead-ofs. So instead of the poster, it's the podcast. You see what I'm saying? Instead of the graph, it's the infographic. Instead of the chart, it's the 3D printer prototype. I had a group of students who were working with an environmental science teacher. They were interviewing a scientist on Zoom. And I said, ask them. They said, what kinds of things do you produce? And he said, right now, grant proposals. So guess what she had them do? A grant proposal. So if we're really getting kids ready for careers, they should be producing the types of products that professionals engage in. So I'm looking at the time. I know I need to finish up here. Maybe what I can do is just finish with a few examples, and I'll stop. Is that, are we good? How many minutes? 3? 5? Make up your mind. Okay, here we go. Those 2, you should see them. Anyway, so here we go. These are some examples of upgraded learning experiences, and it takes to heart what I'm saying about new literacies. Those are some of the new skills, upgraded content, cooler titles for their units, too, by the way. And one of the things I like are the products, too. These were the befores and afters, all right? Do these all look familiar? I think most of them look really boring. I don't know any 5th grader who would want to study nutrition. I don't. They don't say, Mom, where's the food pyramid? I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it today, you know. Not happening. So here's what they got changed to. This is from the Bronx. Kindergarten class is now the essential question is how can I make Mott Place, or Mott Haven, which is their neighborhood, a better place. The kids interviewed every single shopkeeper on the block and did a short video or audio tape about the background of the building, where they were from, and they said, how can kindergarten kids help you? They all said if they're polite, it really helps. So they created a public service announcement, and here's the good news. It's actually helping. What they've been hearing is the kids go in and they'll say, "Good morning, Mr. Mendez. How are you?" And everyone's like, "Who is this kid?" You know, it's been good. And they learned a lot about their neighborhood as opposed to traditional community helpers. They became one. Or something like this. This is probably one of my all-time favorites of anywhere. Second grade, they were doing a unit on measurement. Do you know, by second grade, they've used the ruler a lot. You start to get a backlash when it's, "Oh, we don't have to measure our classroom again. I already can tell you how big it is. You know, enough of this, it's all right." So these are from New Haven, these teachers. And that's Union Station, which is the crossroads in the Northeast between Boston, New York, and New England. And they all meet there. And they were about 3 blocks away from Old Union Station, and they made an agreement with the station master that they got to set up booths, interview passengers, and he gave them statistics and material. He told them about the length of tracks, the time between stations, the number of people, the costs. They really used measurement. The textbook actually had held them back, if you follow where I'm going. And one of the things they found is that the trains don't run on time. Now, I'm a New Yorker. I could have told them that. But the point here is they now have learned this year, they're upgrading even again, trains run on time in Japan. They do. So they are now working with a school in Shibuya, which is one of the busier stations there in Tokyo, and they're trying to find out what it is about the Japanese system that makes their trains run on time. You want writing, you want interviewing, you want speaking, you want the real authentic use of math. And an interesting way to share it digitally. Or this one. This is from Key West, Florida. It's one of my favorite it's a K-8 school, and they're right there, and they're next to the naval base. There's a naval base at Key West. And what they're doing is each grade level is studying the sea, but they're sharing issues about the sea, and each is using a different media format to connect it. And for example, the Coral Reef Group in second grade is connecting now with Australia. I don't know if you're aware, but there's some real issues up near Cairns and Port Douglas with the erosion of the coral reef. And so what's happened is these kids are connected, and they're still meeting all their standards. And in fact, this got one of the Sunshine State Awards. That's the Florida Science Awards. They're really good. This is one of my favorites. Now the unit isn't nutrition. It's called Food Fight. I think it's great. Issues in the food production industry. They started by viewing a film, a very interesting one called Food Inc. Any of you seen this? Food Inc.? Yeah. And now they're making their own, investigating the food sources for the schools in the district. This is Hanoi. Pardon me, oops, I'm missing a slide here. Didn't make it. Okay, that's okay, I'll just tell you what it is. Hanoi, New Britain, Connecticut, and Wellington, New Zealand. The 3 communities are doing a prediction about the demographic shifts. It's in an economics class, the changes in migration patterns, and make predictions and doing a comparative analysis between the 3 schools. It's a high school project in economics. It's pretty cool. This one, I love. Have any of you been to New York in the last couple of years? If you have, raise your hands. Did you go to the High Line? Just call out if you did. Yes, it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? If you want to go do a little homework, just put in High Line as one word, New York City. And what we have now is unique in the world, is the old elevated trains that went for about 2.5 miles down the west side have been converted into a gorgeous landscape park. This group is a New York City group of middle school kids, and they decided to start to study global urban bridges, and they're collecting them, and they want to create a prototype to continue the High Line and make it go across the lower part of Manhattan and create a prototype. So the research allowed them to do global research, learn about bridge building, create their prototype, and look at the history of the High Line. This is really cool. This got an award in Pennsylvania. It's a school near South Fayette. I'm thinking the name of it, Crockerville. I'll have to double check it. But their STEM class designed a helmet to be used, to be inserted inside a football helmet in case there was an injury, that it would immediately contact the emergency groups to come to EMS. That was pretty interesting. So I have, I guess this is one here, and then I'll just wrap her up. This is, instead of doing an economics unit, this is in Houston, and students are studying startups for the year. They're doing a long-term study, and they're going to take a look at what happened, how it worked, and they meet with their kind of an advisory group on looking at how this plays out, and they're using a real interesting software platform to share their findings. The point here is that I'm going to stop here. There's so many wonderful opportunities for you to take a look at what you're doing now and do an upgrade, and instead of keep the best of the classical, get rid of that antiquated, look at opportunities to modernize, but at the same time, keep your eye on the prize and start to look at new types of learning experience in the goal setting that you set, Dr. Rowling, to kind of keep an eye on where is it we really want them to go on that staircase. Innovation is learned, and I would finish with this. The root word of innovation comes from nova, which means to give birth. And I think there's something about the idea of new life that can actually permeate a school. And it does require us to make decisions about what to cut and keep and create. And I would encourage you to be bold and to grow and get a little uncomfortable and share that with others. You have great promise in this district. It's very evident. And thank you for your time and your attention. And thank you, Cooper. Okay? Thank you very much. Oh.
Okay, we're about to watch an authentic performance from someone who has rehearsed. So that was a good example to use. We've got entertainment session number 2. It is the Linda Childers Knapp Elementary School Choir. The choir director is Lacey Hampton. The song is I Have a Voice, and it's from the forthcoming musical, The Song of Bernadette. I think I can see them in there. While they're getting set up, let me remind you that those of you who are new to the district, if you are not a follower of the Springdale School District Facebook page, please become one immediately, and we'll talk a little bit more about that after this performance.
What I have seen or understand.
We have more entertainment to come. What I'm about to share with you before we introduce this group is, since this is my last chance to visit with you, as we leave here, everyone in this room is one of the best ambassadors that we will ever have for the Springdale Public School District, and we have a great district. So when I ask you to please be a follower of our Springdale Facebook page, it allows you to know the stories that you can share, and when you have stories, share them with us so that we can post them. Okay, this is going to be the Springdale High School Quartet. Choir director is Rhonda Hawley. The song is One More Time by the Katinas, Alvin Hiram, Regan Jacklick, Matthew John, and Cairo Langris.
I just want to say we all appreciate you teachers, and thank you very much, and we love y'all. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, and...
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Mark Harmony.
Without you, I can't survive. Oh, I need you, Lord, don't leave me. Without you, I just can't survive.
No, I can't survive. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Every time I hear your voice,
every time I hear your voice,
every time I feel your touch, lets me know that I can face tomorrow one more time.
Have you had a great morning? I sure hope you have. It's been wonderful from my point of view to really going back to the first of the week when I know you began to meet as teams and begin to think about, as a team, what you'd be doing this year. Yesterday, I don't think could have been any better as a community came together to really share their support, their advocacy, just their caring for each of you. And then today, with the student talent that we've had here, recognize our kids again. Would you do that for me? Heidi, I think you gave us one of the most thought-provoking, inspirational messages we've ever had. Recognize our keynote speaker. Will you do that? In just a few days now, it's up to us, isn't it? I look forward to the great things that each of you will be doing this year to serve our kids at higher levels than we ever have in the past. My encouragement to you is to think team. At the same time, I want us all to think the year of the student is always in front of us. That's the way it should be. I want us to work together this year to make this the year of the teacher as well. Will you recognize that? We're going to get a lot better. I know that. You know that. That's who you are. That's our commitment. For just a moment, Paul, put the staircase back up there. I want you to at least understand what we're trying to represent here. This is the work of this district. This is the work of Springdale teachers over the last 38 years. I have the privilege to visit with our great teachers all the time. Just a few days ago, I was sitting at a table with Pat Ellison, Connie Williams. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. That's the kind of family that we have, and we can add hundreds and hundreds and thousands of teachers that have brought us to this point. As I walked up the stairway, I gave some set to teach them all, and some set to learning for all, and some set to learning together. Obviously, this team from pre-K through 12th grade is focused on graduation for all. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to talk some about the importance of career ready and college ready. And even as I opened the session today, I talked about the way we prepared kids for their next steps career-wise, their next steps in terms of continuing their education. And throughout this session today, we've begun to look at innovation ready. We've all read the works of Thomas Friedman. We know that our kids have to be able to compete at a level they perhaps never had to compete for. They're going to have to compete with other children from around the world for jobs, for places in colleges and universities, for careers, etc. And it's our work that will continue to get them ready to make that step. And I have every confidence that they will be very successful. We'll probably be dealing with Teach Them All for the rest of our careers. And if these landings on this staircase make sense to you, we'll be adding and growing to make each of those more real, more rich, if you will. Innovation ready is a great stretch for us. I've talked about the team at the SOI, but what I've really talked about today is the team of this district and how it is our charge, our stretch, really thinking about and applying what our speaker has talked about today at a higher level perhaps than we never have before. And then I wonder, what you think the next step on that staircase will actually be. How will we characterize that tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow? That's the transformation that we're all involved in at this point in time, and what I believe is one of the great school systems in this country. And I thank you for that. We've had great kids on stage today, and I'd like for us to close with another performance that really brings home to us why we're here. In Springdale, it really is all about our students. Enjoy this video with me, if you would.
I close my eyes and I can see the world is waiting for me. That I call my own. Through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before. But it feels like home. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say I've lost my mind. I don't care, so call me crazy. We can live in a world that we design. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make.
They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say we've lost our minds. I don't care if they call us crazy. Run away to a world that we design.
'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. However big, however small, let me be part of it all. Share your dreams with me. You may be right, you may be wrong, but say that you'll bring me along to the world you see, to the world I close my eyes to see. I close my eyes to see.
'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head.
A million dreams are keeping me
A million dreams, a million dreams.
I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. For the world we're gonna make.
And that's what I wanted all of us all to do, to get the students to bring us their dreams so we could protect those dreams and help them to grow. Beautiful? Do you agree? Well, let me assure you the highlights of our program this morning you've experienced already. But we do have a closing deal, and we're going to kind of test your mettle to see just how good you really are this morning. You know, some of you were to kind of ask about, do you have any new dance steps, Dr. Rollins? Any new music? You know, we tried that. I went to a couple dance studios, but just didn't make the cut. So we tried something a little different. We're going to take 3 or 4 minutes. I hope you will enjoy this very much.
I am not going to laugh.
What is an astronaut's favorite place on a computer? The space bar.
I laughed.
Well, my expectations going in, I knew the jokes were going to be really good, that he always pulls out his very best material.
I just wrote a book on reverse psychology. Don't read it. What do you do to keep a bull from charging?
You know what?
You cancel its credit card. What did the nut say while chasing the other nut?
I have no idea.
I'm a cashier. What do you find in an empty nose?
I don't know.
Fingerprints. What lights up a soccer game? A soccer match. Why do cows wear bells? You gotta think about it. Why do cows wear bells? Anything? Because their horns don't work. It didn't go for it, huh? Okay.
Man, that was crazy.
Well, I was hopeful that I would know a few answers to some of the jokes. I love really bad jokes, and they were really bad jokes.
I wrote a song about a tortilla. Well, actually, it's more a rap.
That was good, too.
What did Dr. Dre say when 50 Cent gave him a sweater? Gee, you knit? I don't know. What did the leaves name their son?
I've never found Dr. Rollins funny, and so I think that I'm probably not going to laugh.
Russell.
But I laughed anyways, because laughing was what would get me out of there sooner.
What did the dentist give to the marching band?
What?
What did the dentist give to the marching band?
What did the dentist give to the marching band?
A tube of paste.
Dr. Rollins isn't funny.
What is the rapper's favorite toy?
What?
A yo-yo. All right, gather yourself.
I think I'm going to dominate. I've been preparing for this moment for weeks.
3, 2, 1, stare.
I think this is going to be the best experience of my life.
Best ever?
All right, I'm ready.
Why does the pirate wear camouflage underwear?
I don't know.
To hide his booty.
Of course. He said booty.
Good job, Mike. All right.
It was the best experience of my life.
Well, you know, I have a lot of respect for Dr. Rollins.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
He's a very serious man and he takes his work very seriously.
All right.
And to see that side of him is super fun.
Bye. You going, kid?
You know, having Dr. Rollins try to make me laugh, I think it was the best experience of my life.
What do you call it? Dog magician?
I don't know what.
I don't either. I can't read this one. Simcoe, are you practicing? More background noise, please. Stretch on that.
I think that was
She's out of here.
I think that was a tie. That was a tie.
Wrap it up. 1, 2. Yes. Audience didn't get it. They did not get it. What, who's D? D-R-A. Is that Drew? Or? Thank you,
Love
Margie.
those jokes.
No joke. This will be the best school year ever. Have a great day.